Archbishop has made one of the strongest charges possible. He declared that those who follow the priests of the Society of St. Pius X could be falling into sin. This is not something small. It cuts to the very heart of Catholic life because it deals with the sacraments, the daily practice of faith, and the question of obedience within the Church. His words do not just target the priests of the society, but also the faithful who attend their masses, confess to them, or receive other sacraments from their hands. Once again, this shows how divided the Church has become over the place of tradition and the people who wish to remain faithful to it. The chain of events began during the Jubilee, a year meant to represent mercy and openness to all Catholics. It was supposed to be a time when the Church set aside barriers, where every believer could feel welcome as a child of the same spiritual mother. Yet, for Catholics attached to tradition, the reality was very different. Their planned pilgrimage, which had already been announced in the official program, was suddenly removed from the Vatican's website during the summer. No reason was given. It was not a technical problem, it was intentional. Everything else remained listed, except for the pilgrimage connected to the Society of St. Pius X. The message could not have been clearer. Everyone was welcome, except those who wanted to keep the old liturgy alive, the traditional Latin Mass. For many, this was deeply painful. The year of mercy, which should have reflected compassion and inclusion, instead revealed rejection and exclusion. Catholics devoted to tradition were not embraced as brothers and sisters, but treated almost like outsiders in their own church. Their loyalty to the traditional liturgy seemed to mark them as second class, a celebration that should have symbolized unity instead highlighted division. Things became even more serious on August 15th, when Cardinal Anders Arborelius, Archbishop of Stockholm, issued an official statement. He accused the priests of the Society of St. Pius X of administering illicit sacraments and told the faithful not to turn to them. His words weighed heavily, especially since they came shortly after Archbishop Bernard Fellay had conferred the sacrament of confirmation on young Catholics attached to tradition. Those confirmations were valid in the eyes of the Church. Theologically, no one could deny their correctness. Yet they were dismissed as scandalous not because of the sacrament itself, but because of who performed it. The focus shifted away from the grace of the sacrament to the legal status of the minister. Instead of celebrating young Catholics strengthened in their faith, the hierarchy seemed more interested in legal arguments, leaving many souls discouraged. This created a troubling contradiction. The sacraments are meant to unite the faithful, to give them certainty and peace. Yet here they were being turned into weapons, instruments of division, rather than grace. Ordinary Catholics began asking painful questions. Was their confession valid? Was their marriage truly recognized? Was their child's confirmation real before God? No Catholic should ever be left doubting the sacraments. Yet thousands are now burdened with these worries. The Society of St. Pius X, however, did not remain silent. On August 22nd, two of its priests, Father Karl Stalin and Father Haken Lindstrom, released an open letter. Their reply was calm, respectful, and backed with facts. They reminded everyone of something many had forgotten. In September 2015, Pope Francis himself granted SSPX priests the faculty to hear confessions both validly and licitly. In November 2016, this permission was made permanent. Then in 2017, the Pope extended the possibility for SSPX priests to perform marriages, provided the local bishop gave approval. These were not temporary favors, they were papal acts, and none of them has ever been withdrawn. To now accuse the society of lacking authority to administer sacraments is to openly contradict what the Pope himself has established. The priests also recalled the words of Bishop Athanasius Schneider, a highly respected bishop who defended the society. He argued that labeling them as schismatics was unfair and overly legalistic. Since Bishop Schneider was not part of the society, but a bishop in full communion with Rome, his support carried great weight. It showed that not all in the Church agreed with the harsh accusations. Rather, there was a deeper struggle taking place. Some church leaders wanted dialogue. Others insisted on condemnation. This tension grew even sharper in Poland. On September 3rd, Catholic news agency Kai reported that Archbishop Joseph Kupny of Rockwall would issue a letter to be read in all the parishes of his archdiocese. The reason was the growing presence of the society, which was building a new church in the area. In his letter, Archbishop Kupny acknowledged that masses offered by SSPX priests were indeed valid, yet he said they were still improper because they took place without the bishop's approval and outside the official structures of the church. Then he went further. declaring that if members of the society openly opposed papal authority, they committed sin. He even added that such sin required confession before it could be forgiven, though he insisted his letter was not an attack on Catholics who love tradition. His call for the faithful to avoid SSPX masses and go instead to diocesan churches made the message clear. Once again, this exposed a painful contradiction. Pope Francis had granted SSPX priests faculties for confession and marriage, recognizing their ministry in vital areas. Yet bishops and archbishops were warning Catholics to avoid them, even claiming that attending their sacraments could be sinful. The faithful were left in confusion and distress. How can the Pope approve while bishops condemn? How can a sacrament be valid and licit in Rome, but called improper or sinful in Stockholm or Rockwall? Ordinary believers cannot be faulted for feeling abandoned. They only want to live the Catholic faith, raise their families, and prepare their souls for heaven. Instead of clear guidance, they find themselves caught in a storm of contradictions. This is not simply a matter of canon law or theological debate. It is an ecclesial drama that weighs on ordinary Catholics, parents who want to baptize their children, young people who long for confirmation, couples preparing for marriage, the elderly seeking confession before death. These are the people most affected. The sacraments, meant to be channels of grace, are now treated as battlegrounds. What should be sacred and certain has been clouded with doubt and division. At the heart of the conflict lies one question: does tradition still have a true place? In the Catholic Church, officially, the Church speaks of openness and inclusivity, but in practice, barriers are placed, a pilgrimage is canceled, confirmations are denounced, masses are labeled improper, sacraments are called sinful in one country, but recognized in another. This is not unity, it is confusion, and it is the faithful who wander helplessly through this maze. Throughout history, the Church has survived many crises, but the sacraments were always seen as safe ground and changing gifts from God. That gave certainty even in dark times. Now, even that foundation feels shaken. A confession declared valid and licit by Pope Francis can be called sinful by an archbishop. A marriage blessed under papal concessions is rejected elsewhere. Ordinary Catholics cannot carry such contradictions without feeling betrayed. So the question becomes urgent. What is really being protected here? Is the Church defending souls, or simply guarding institutional control? For decades, the Society of St. Pius X has been accused of being outside the normal order. Yet it continues to grow, attracting thousands who only seek the liturgy and sacraments as they were always handed down. Instead of asking why so many find refuge there, the hierarchy often responds with restrictions and condemnations. The result is more division, more anger, more confusion. This is not about politics. It is not even mainly about law. It is about souls. The faithful need peace, not suspicion. They need encouragement, not warnings that they may be sinning by going to Mass. Catholics who love tradition are not asking for special treatment. They are simply asking for space to live the same faith their ancestors lived. To deny them this space is to say they are only welcome if they abandon their identity. That is not mercy, it is exclusion disguised as discipline. This entire situation reveals something very troubling. The Catholic Church today is not speaking with a single voice. Rome says one thing, local bishops say another. The faithful are left torn between them. The result is mistrust, division, and suffering. When an archbishop declares that following the Society of St. Pius X is sinful, he is not just condemning priests. He is accusing ordinary Catholics of putting their souls at risk. That is a heavy accusation, especially since the Pope himself has recognized the legitimacy of key sacraments. Celebrated by those very priests, the faithful deserve clear and unified guidance.